Hello and good day, lecturer and colleagues. My name is Rafael Fabian Praisa Widharma, student number 183. And today I'd like to present my article review for the critical reading assignment. First off, this article is titled The Effect of Indonesian YouTubers and Vloggers Register on Young Generation Behavior by Gede Budiasa and Putu Savitri. Now let's start off with the key information of this article, the abstract section, the titling, and the references. Now, the keywords for this article include the words register, style, YouTuber, and vlogger. The title of this particular article, like I said before, is The Effect of Indonesian YouTubers and Vloggers Register on Young Generation Behavior. And I think that this title is a perfect title for this article as it lays out the aims of the study pretty well, and readers at a glance can easily tell what this article is most likely about. For the references, there are not many. There are only 11 in total, but some of them date back to the 1970s and the 1980s. But most of them, a good chunk of them, around seven of them, are from 2010 and 2016. They are well referenced and they provide clear information on the sources that the authors took. Now, on to the introduction. Now, this section starts by giving an explanation of Indonesian YouTube user trends and what most Indonesians think of YouTube as a platform, as a video sharing platform. Now, the authors then mention how Indonesian content creators operate on the website. Uh, they go into detail on what kind of skills that these people possess to create attractive content and what they need to do to maintain their viewership and to increase their following. Then the authors point out a preliminary observation in which they find that Indonesian content creators tend to use unique words and phrases that also produces new words. These language behaviors also use code mixing and also code switching, slangs, and jargons. Now, content creators do this and use this sort of language behavior to help them seem more relatable to their audience. It also creates a sort of relaxed environment. The authors then state the aim for their study. They did this very clearly, in which they say that their aim is to see if younger people's language behavior is affected by the language variety used by Indonesian content creators, YouTubers, and vloggers. Um, the general point of the authors that the authors are trying to convey in this section are carried out well enough, but the authors tend to restate some points, such as the aim of their study, a bit too much to the point where it seems like they're only padding out the length of their article. And there are some unfortunate grammatical errors where they misuse certain articles and certain words. Now, we're moving on to the methods. In this part, the article starts off by explaining how the data was collected. Now, the data was collected through the distribution of questionnaires and interviews amongst amongst youth groups. Uh, and they also proceed to state the theories that this study was based on. Now, chief among which these theories are stated by Naban from 1984, Bachman in 1990, as well as Scher and Agustina from 2010. These are all sociolinguistic theories. Several sociolinguistic aspects that became the basis for the study was also explained by the authors. Now, these sociolinguistic aspects include the variety of spoken and written language, language variety based on tenor, bilingualism, code switching, code mixing, and also interference. All of these aspects were explained well enough, weren't too long, and it didn't go on for multiple paragraphs. It's easy to understand and easy to digest. Moving on then, the results for the respondents consisted of around 100 participants. All of them were in the age group of 13 to 22 years old. Around 71.7% of the respondents were female and 28.3% were male. Fortunately, the statistics of the respondents were well documented and easy to understand. And here are the results of the questionnaires. But before we get into the results, we can talk about the questions that are on the questionnaire. Now, the first question is is the authors were trying to find out how many hours a day did the respondents spend watching YouTube. And the next question was whether the respondents agree or disagree that YouTubers had an interesting or attractive language style. Next, the authors ask the respondents whether or not their favorite content creators on the platform YouTube use a form of slang or jargon in their vocabulary. And the next one, the authors then ask if the respondents themselves also used such slang and jargon in their vocabulary. And lastly, the authors set out to find out if the respondents uh, agree or not if using a YouTuber's language style makes them more confident or cooler. Now for the responses. For the first question, 41% of respondents, which is the majority, spends more than 2 hours a day watching YouTube. This is in contrast where only about 27% spent less than 2 hours a day. Moving on, 56% of all respondents agreed that YouTubers had an interesting language style. The remaining were either neutral, which were, or they disagreed that YouTubers had an interesting language style. And then 44% of all respondents confirmed that their favorite content creators did indeed use a form of slang or jargon in, apologies for that, in their vocabulary. And then 62% of respondents also admitted to using such similar slang and jargon in their daily vocabulary. Their daily vocabulary includes environments and situations such as talking to their friends and their family, and also in informal settings like in the market and other similar settings. And finally, 47% of respondents disagree that using a YouTuber's language style will make them feel more confident and more cooler. I applaud the authors for documenting the results well enough and also posting the results on their article without omitting any particular details. Also, they also make charts to go along with these results, thus giving readers a better understanding of the results themselves. So the conclusion of the study then. The study reveals that a good chunk of today's youth are well acquainted with the platform YouTube. A lot of them are users of the platform, and most of them are also familiar with the big name content creators. I believe I don't think I need to mention who. Indonesian content creators are amongst the biggest in the Asian internet scene. What's next? The study also reveals that teens and adolescents are aware and also participate and use some of the language style used by these YouTubers and content creators. But this does not mean that they adopted these YouTubers' language styles. Most respondents did not fully adopt YouTubers' language style. Now, this was done to avoid certain negative connotations to some of the words that are present in these language styles, because the youth are also wary of this to avoid coming across as impolite to the elderly. Also, what the data reveals is that the respondents were generally split on whether or not the language style of content creators made enough of a positive impact on the development of modern day Indonesian vocabulary. Now, for my overall statement on this particular article, I do agree that this article is structured well enough, and the points that the authors were trying to make come across very clearly, or at least adequately. This article delves into the impact that YouTubers have, Indonesian YouTubers in particular, have on the youth amongst their social linguistic aspects. The study gave an interesting insight into that. The authors provided ample explanation regarding the theories that their study was based on, and the results gained from the study were provided in full detail with helpful accompanying charts. This article, sadly, is plagued by many grammatical errors of varying degrees. So, what I mean by varying degrees is varying degrees of severity. There are some minor grammatical errors, such as misplacing a period and a comma, but there are also pretty major grammatical errors where they misuse some words and sometimes they omit some words entirely that can change the meaning of the text for some readers. Now, because this was a very prominent error, not to mention that there are certain repeated parts in this article that became redundant, that basically stopped this article from becoming a great article. So my final verdict for this article is that it's a good enough article. I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. Well, that's my review on this article, and I hope that you understood my points clearly enough. And if you didn't, then I apologize for that. Thank you for uh, sparing some of your time to watch my presentation. Have a good day. Stay safe. Uh, Thank you.